Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Disability Access Services Oakland webinar for students who are leaving London and heading to Oakland for spring 2025 as a global scholar. If that's you, you're in the right spot. If not, we will see you at another one. Happy for you to stick around. But again, this is for students who are transitioning from London to Oakland for spring 2025 as a global scholar. We're going to let some other folks make their way in, and we'll start in just a moment. All right, we're gonna slow roll as we let folks make their way in. Also, this is being recorded, so folks who are watching, welcome. But also for folks who are online right now, this is being recorded, so you can look back at this recording and get the information that you might need as well. For folks who don't know me, I'm Dr. Shannon Fairley Pittman, director of our Global Scholars and London Scholars program. Very excited for you all as you're preparing to end your time in London, almost there, and then making your way over to our Oakland campus for spring 2025. And here today to talk about one of our helpful resources and offices over in Oakland. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague in just a moment who's going to introduce theirself and talk you through the resources and opportunities there. But for students and families on the call today, if you have a question, feel free to place your question in the Q&A box. It's at the bottom of the screen there. You can place your question. We might get to it during the presentation, so feel free to listen carefully as we're going through. And if we don't get to it, if it's not a personal question, we might call it out and have our colleagues from Oakland be able to answer it broadly. And then again, if it's personal, we'll put in the Oakland DAS email that you can email them and they can get back to you. And then again, this is being recorded. So if you need to leave or you miss anything, we will be sending out the recording by the beginning of next week. And also we have a playlist that we likely will drop in the chat for you as well, should you want to look at any of our other webinars that we've had as well. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Lillian Gonzalez, who is the Associate Vice Chancellor over in Oakland.
Thanks so much, Shannon. Good morning, everyone. We are very excited to welcome you here to our Oakland campus. I've been on this beautiful campus for 20 plus years and are really excited to have our London students come over and experience our 135 beautiful acres that we have on campus, as well as really great weather. So I welcome you. I'm excited to see you all. As the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Life, I oversee many of our areas here on campus, accommodations being one of them. I work with a great team of an associate director and a disability specialist. For today, I'm going to go through the presentation and share those resources myself, given that my staff is out with another presentation as well. So we all work very closely together here. One of the great things about the Oakland campus is how large but small and intimate our offices and our campus partners are. So we collaborate together a lot. Outside of accommodations, I also oversee our wellness department, housing and res life, our conduct areas, and our duty and emergency response across the campus as well. Today, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our disability access and services resource and our office. Like Shannon mentioned, feel free to drop any questions. And as I'm going through this, I'll be able to answer some through the presentation and also maybe just point some out. Just so you all know, I'll let you know a little bit about the team that you'll be working with in Disability Access Services, our mission and our purpose, how you would be connecting with us, whether that's through email or in person, what documentation and intake meetings look like, which are super important as you transition over to Oakland, that you all either have done this already or are getting connected with our team now so that you have everything ready to go by the time you start classes on January 6th. We also will go through what our P&Ls are, our professor notification letters are about accommodations. I'll tell you a little bit about the testing center, how housing and dining works in Oakland in terms of accommodations, other campus resources, and then you'll be left with the information on how to contact the department directly. Our two folks who support the department here in Oakland are Associate Director Courtney Gutierrez. She uses she, her, and ella pronouns. She's been on this campus for a little over 4 years now, has been through the merger with us as well, has been supporting the larger global network, not just the Oakland campus, with transitioning our students to and from our campus. She typically is the one who will do some intakes with students, but also takes more of our high level, both cases and for students who are maybe like, hey, I've never really actually had an accommodation. What might this look like in real time? So if folks are interested in accommodations, she's typically the one who meets with them. She also supports any temporary injury and or working with our Department of Public Safety to make sure that students who have mobility concerns and or injuries that are either temporary or permanent also are able to get escorted through campus. So she's more of on the director leadership side of the department. We recently hired Darcy Alley, who is our disability specialist. She'll also be meeting with students, doing intakes and checking folks' documentation. She also will be focusing on programming for our DAS students. So whether it's just for DAS itself or larger programming across campus to bring more visibility to accessibility services on campus and just accessibility in general. So you'll see both of them on campus. Their offices are, excuse me, their offices are in Sage Hall, which you'll learn quickly through your campus map tours that you'll do once you get to campus. They are available for walk-ins, but also scheduling appointments and also oversee the testing center, which is also in Sage Hall as well. A little bit about our mission and our purpose. The DAS office here in Oakland serves Northeastern students, specifically in Oakland, who have documented disabilities as defined by the ADAA of 2008. Under the definition, a person with a disability is one with a physical, mental, emotional, or chronic health impairment that limits part or a major part of their life and activities. We take this statement very seriously here on the campus, more specifically because sometimes for many of our students or ourselves who have invisible disabilities, it's a little bit hard to actually know what this might look like in action for our students. And so we take our student stories and narratives very seriously and speak truth to what they're experiencing, and then try and figure out what a reasonable accommodation is that we can fit within the campus. Our purpose is to ensure that all of our students with disabilities have equal access to an education here on the campus, and also just resources and accessing things like dining, our lounges, our activities in general. And our guiding principles are informed by federal law regarding disability and privacy, and the rights of individuals, needs of people that we serve. So as much as, the department very much is ran by the mission and the purpose, and we have to abide by our guiding principles that are informed by federal law, we also very much take our students' narrative and stories into consideration and work very closely to students to make sure that we can meet their needs. If you're wondering how to connect with folks, the general questions that can be sent to the department are through the one email inbox where we catch everything that comes through accommodations, and that's dasoakland@northeastern.edu. Like I mentioned, walk-ins are available as long as folks have open office hours, but both of my team members always encourage scheduling with the team. I think this is something that, for all of you as students, you're probably getting into good practice when you're thinking about meeting with your faculty who have office hours, but maybe you need to meet with them outside of those. The team is always available to meet, whether it's virtually or in person. And also sometimes, depending on what your need is, they might also meet with you and connect you with a different resource on campus as well. In order to request accommodations, so no new documentation is needed unless you have a new diagnosis or there's been a change and a significant change in your diagnosis, or if you're requesting more accommodations than what you were previously approved. So all of this documentation and or inquiry about accommodations can be sent to the dasoakland@northeastern.edu. It's important that students know that the sooner you send your documentation, the sooner we can get your accommodations in the portal, in the system, so that you have access to them. Sometimes we see that some students will submit documentation, but then not do the other pieces, which we'll go through. That sometimes takes a little bit of time. It's important for students to also know that depending on when you send your documentation, regardless of the time of the year, it takes up to 2 to 3 weeks to review that documentation to really understand what the student needs. And it's not just about submitting documentation, but it's also meeting with our team. So unless you have a new diagnosis, there's been a change, or you're requesting more than what you've previously have had at other campuses, you can send documentation to our DAS Oakland address. Once you send that email and documentation, you can visit the Disability Access Services website. We complete the student disclosure form that's found on that website and submit it to DAS along with your documentation. Then our DAS staff will meet with you to do an intake meeting to really understand what it is that you need. Sometimes what you might need at a different campus and a different location might look different than it did there. So it's not as simple like, hey, I had X, can I just get X on campus? We need to have a meeting to really think about how do we best serve the need that you have, given the resources we have here and also just the difference in the campus. Once you have that intake and your documentation is submitted and you meet with our staff, the staff then meets with the review committee to determine what reasonable accommodations are. I'd like to say that my team is pretty quick on, reviewing, even though we have a timeline, but also getting back to students about what accommodations could look like, or if there's any information that is missing. Like I mentioned, it takes 2 to 3 weeks once we received all necessary documentation. So not just the doc, but your disability specific disclosure form as well. And then as soon as you have your accommodation approved, you'll receive an email from the disability specialist to complete a student service agreement. The student service agreement is something that's very important, and in order for you to receive any accommodations, the agreement has to be signed. But it essentially is an agreement between you and the DAS office that you understand what is available to you and how you can access it, and that we as an office understand that these are the things that you need. We talk to our students a lot about we all have different parts and different responsibilities, right? The accommodation team's job is to assess what you need to be able to put things in place for you. And as a student, your responsibility is to make sure that these things are happening in the classroom by what you're asking your professors for. And then your faculty are supposed to abide by the things that both the Access Services Department and your notification form will let them know about. All students approved for accommodations transitioning to Oakland will be contacted via email. So we typically have like a transition meeting between London, Oakland, Oakland, London that actually is happening in the next week. For folks who are already approved for accommodations in London, our team typically knows to reach out to those students. So if you are not on that list and you might be thinking about getting accommodations here now that you've had a semester under your belt and are understanding kind of what you need, please reach out yourself to the DAS Oakland at Northeastern. Once you have this registration meeting, like I mentioned, you'll sign the student service agreement, and this outlines your approved accommodations, and that will keep on file for DAS. You'll be instructed on the next steps to access your accommodations through the portal. And depending on, for relevant academic or classroom accommodations, you'll be taught how to request your professor notification letters, which we'll talk a little bit about in the next couple of slides. This is also an opportunity for students to meet their specialists one-on-one, kind of locate themselves to campus, see where the Sage Hall building is if you need more support throughout the semester, see where the testing center is, ask questions, and share any of concerns you may have. So these registration meetings and student service agreements are extremely important in order for us to be able to get your accommodations on file and to make sure that they're acted upon. And the SSAs or the student service agreements have to be signed immediately once that meeting happens. The professor notification letters that I mentioned, all DAS students approved for base accommodations have to request their what we call P&Ls, but their professor notification letters at the start of every new academic semester. This is not something that's automated. Some students might have an experience where they submit their accommodations and then it automatically sends them to their professors. At Northeastern University and many colleges, this is not something that's an automated process. It's actually something that students have to enact. So you're responsible for submitting these requests by logging into your portal. Once a request has been made, the DAS team office sends the notifications letters via email to your instructors within 3 to 5 business days. The professors then receive these letters and know exactly who the student is in need, what they need in the classroom, and also can kind of support in thinking about how this all will look like in the classroom and connect with the student. So like I mentioned before, DAS's responsibility is to assess, give reasonable accommodations, put those on file. The student's responsibility is to connect with the faculty and send the professors letters, and the professors then to see these accommodation letters and see how that's going to look in real time in the classroom. A student's diagnosis and disability remains private to our DAS team. Professors are just informed of what the student is registered for and what are the accommodations that are needed for the class and the course. Similarly to housing, so if there's any accommodations about a single room, a low-use bathroom, a particular type of bed, none of that is shared with the housing and or greater community. It's more about what you need. In particular, things in housing are a little bit more specific that we would share specifically with our one assistant director of housing, but other things that will revolve around your course and diagnosis are not shared with your faculty. Those are things that are kept private. Once you have access, and I know that we already have had a few meetings with students and intakes. So if you have access to this now, this is kind of your how-to. This is the QR code you would use to access your DRC portal. You click on access the DRC portal on the DRC form request main page. There'll be a drop-down list, and this is where you would submit and request your professor notification letters. You'll see a current kind of drop-down of your current classes. You'll select the course you'd like to send and then sit next, and you'll repeat this process for all additional classes. So again, this is part of the biggest main step in order for your accommodations to actually be on file with your faculty. So make sure that you take a screenshot of this or notice this through the recordings that we'll send out. But this is how you would request those notification letters, and this is how then the team sends those letters to your faculty. This is just an example of what a disclosure form looks like. Again, it gives your student name, your NUID, the approved academic classroom accommodations, as well as your approved exam accommodations. And so the teacher will always know what they need in the classroom, and also to be aware that you might have exam accommodations for the near future. But they're all pretty standardized for our disability office and for the faculty, and they all look the same for every student. Our testing center here is in Sage Hall. It's open Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Friday, 8 to 5. We have grad students who are our proctors for the testing center. It's also ran by our Disability Access Services Department. It's in Sage Hall, right across from our really big building, Mills Hall, which you'll learn to love and know as kind of like the hub of where campus is in the center. One thing that's super important is that students have to make reservations for their exams at least 2 full business days prior to the exam. As you all come for the beginning of the spring, you will also be part of an orientation. You all will be moving in on the 4th of January, and orientation is on the 5th. During that orientation, Courtney will also be presenting to students, and she'll do a little bit of a quiz of trying to understand 2 full business days. What does that mean? If you have an exam on Friday, if you have an exam on Tuesday, what does that mean in terms of what those 2 full business days? This is super, super important because we need to be able to know how many students are testing and when in order to be able to accommodate your need. Sometimes students forget and try and submit a request, and it might be a little too late because we might not have space. So we try and work as closely and as efficiently as we can with our students. And this is something that is definitely your responsibility as well. Typically, once you submit your room reserve form and or your exam request, your professors will then get a notification via email, and that lets them know that you're taking an exam, how much time it is, and then your professor connects with us over at the Sage Testing Center to be able to give us all the information we need for to be able to proctor your exam. Our testing center also has lockers, so for students bringing in cell phones or food or things that you might have access to during a break and or after. Students come into the testing center, get a locker, put their stuff away. Our proctors always know what you're allowed to have in your room of tests, whether it's like a small index card, a pencil, things, utensils in general, or equipment in general. That's all approved through your professor. They let us know what you need. We get students into their exam room, and then often some students will ask for a time kind of check, and then once it's over, you submit your test, and then you're welcome to grab your things from your locker and get going. Again, through your DRC portal, so 2 full business days, but this is also where you would use your room reserve page. From that drop down, you get a list of courses similarly to your professor notification letters, you select the exam and then the purpose of the exam or the purpose of the room. So if you need the room just to study, that's one thing. If you need the room for an exam, this is something that you will also need to calculate your extra time for your room reservation. So if you have time and a half or double, you'll have to put this in the drop down. In general, if you need some support and figure out now what time and a half or 2 hours looks like from the time that you've been given, because sometimes quizzes have a little bit of funky time limit, our DAS folks can definitely help you figure that out before you submit it. If it's a reoccurring exam, you'll be able to submit reoccurring. So sometimes we have quizzes that happen on a monthly basis that you want to just kind of get in already. But again, we stress a lot to our students, you have to submit these 2 full business days in advance. And this is all requested through your portal. In terms of housing and dining, Northeastern here on the Oakland campus has a variety of housing options for students. I might have seen some of you in the webinar we did a couple of weeks ago about housing. The standard is shared housing in residential hall settings for our global scholars coming from London. We have 3 main buildings: Mary Morris, Whitehall, and Warren Only. All of those spaces have, the majority are doubles and or triples, and then we do have some singles that are designated for accommodation purposes in general across those 3 buildings. In each res hall, you have community assistants and resident assistants who are available to support you in the space and also to know kind of what's going on, if things are coming up between you and a roommate, if there's a facility issue with the room. Your community assistants are folks who are on 24/7 in your space, live on, who, if and when you have a question, they're able to support with getting you forwarded or connected with a department, or also just folks who can help you navigate campus in general. All of our first years on campus are on a university meal plan. The main dining halls we have, this picture you see here is our main founders dining hall. This is a buffet cafeteria that's open Monday through Sunday with specific hours, brunch on the weekends, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Brunch and dinner on the weekends, and then breakfast, lunch, and dinner during the week. This is where you would use your Husky ID that you will all be receiving when you attend move-in, where you would swipe for your meals, and it's all you can eat buffet. Students can spend hours in there if they'd like. We also have some reusable to-go containers that are available to students. We recently added a beautiful pizza oven, a beautiful dessert station with frozen yogurt and things that folks can, and ice cream that folks can take on their way out. It's been a dining hall that was renovated over the summer, and so it's a beautiful new space that students have access to now. We also have in the central of campus a tea shop. So if students are running between classes or you want something more kind of like an easy grab and go, we have a Cafe Susie's and the tea shop. We have sushi in the Cafe Susie's and some grab and go kind of salads, yogurts, sandwiches, things like that in cafe. And the tea shop, we have some grill stations. All of our food friendly stations and food stations in general across the campus all have allergy friendly stations. And so there are certain spaces in both the tea shop and founders where we take into consideration food allergens and gluten, and those are clearly labeled and made sure that students understand. We also have an amazing dietitian who's on campus who can meet with students. Typically, if a student has a particular allergy or needs something specifically in dining, the chef also meets with the student. So as soon as you can connect with our dining folks and our access folks, your needs can be met. In Founders, if and when there's a particular need dining-wise that can't be addressed by dining, there are other avenues we also kind of explore in terms of how to support students. We rarely, if ever, have had that issue, but I really am grateful that our dining team works so closely with our students, both our dietitian and our chef. So for any of you who are navigating some dining things, I know you're coming from a place where you don't have meal plans to a place you have meal plans, make sure you connect with our DAS office to work through some of those things. In terms of other resources that both collaborate with accommodations, but just other resources you might access on campus, we have a counseling and psychological services department that's open Monday through Friday. Students also have access to what we call Find at NU, where you have access to a mental health therapist 24/7 through telehealth. We also have through that app something called care team messaging. So if you're just having a rough day, no matter the time of day, you can always text on the app and have a clinician and or a medical professional check in with you about kind of what next steps are. On a daily basis, there are also not just appointments, but same day drop-in appointments. So if you don't have an appointment scheduled, but you feel like what you're navigating is actually pretty urgent, and you're needing to meet with somebody, we also have urgent drop-in hours there. Our care team is a team of about 12 people who meet weekly to talk about students of concern. This team typically gets referrals from staff and or faculty who are like, hey, we haven't seen the student, or hey, something seems a little bit off, would love for somebody to check in, I'm concerned about somebody's well-being. Or students also self-select and submit themselves through a referral for the care team as well. You know, sometimes it's kind of common for students to feel homesick or to feel a little lonely or isolated and try and figure out how they build community. The care team is also here for that. Other resources are the Housing and Residential Support Office. So again, accommodations works closely with them if there are things that are coming up. This is also the department that would support you with any kind of mediated conflict that you would need with roommates, which hopefully that won't be needed. There's also a tutoring and writing center in Carnegie Hall, which is one of our buildings right next to Sage, where accommodations is. Or we have tutoring for students in multiple subjects. And then the Center for Leadership and Excellence is also a place where students go to hang out. We have most of our main kind of common lounges in there, where students can go and kind of just hang out, play some video games. We host a lot of programs in there. It's kind of through, it's mainly kind of like the center of campus, a center hub. So all of these resources will be available to you when you get here, whether it's, you know, about building community, whether it's about getting support for mental health, getting connected, meeting your folks who are live on, that are here to support you. Lots of resources. And again, one of the things that is great about having such an intimate campus is these are all offices you can literally walk into. So there's not a lot of email that has to happen. You can literally come and drop into any of these spaces, and most of the often than not have a resolution. For any contact information, again, if you have any specific questions about accommodations and whether it's the process or some documentation that you've had in the past and you're wondering what that would look like here, please email dasoakland@northeastern.edu. That is checked daily. If you have more concerns and want to talk to someone, you can also call the front desk. Once you get to campus, this is in Sage Hall in room 118. Again, Sage also houses our testing center, and we work through Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 p.m. and have also an Instagram where you'll be able to see some of the programming that happens on campus as well. Make sure you keep this information. If you have more questions about anything related to accessibility, our team will be happy to answer.
Awesome. That is very helpful. Maybe Lori, we go back to the contact slide just so folks, in case they need to screenshot it or they see it. Very helpful. Thank you so much, Lillian. Helpful information. Folks who are on the call today, let us know if you have any questions, and we'll hold on for another minute or so. Again, if you have a question, feel free to drop it in the Q&A box, and then we will call it out if it's not anything that's confidential or personal. I also want to make note that we dropped the email in the chat function, so you should be able to see it. In case you need the email, feel free to save that email, and our YouTube playlist. So that is where you can go to get any of the webinars that we have hosted for the Global Scholars Program, the Welcome to Your New City for Oakland, any of the other webinars that will help you as you transition. But I do see a question come in. So Lillian, if you already have a accommodation in London, do you need to reapply for Oakland?
Yes, so regardless of what your accommodations are on any other campus, you have to reapply every semester, whether it's here in Oakland or in Boston. And that's because there are certain, especially coming from London, there are different UK laws than, you know, state laws in terms of how the paperwork will transition. And so you have to submit your documentation, meet with an intake person here to see what that looks like in person and what that will look like once you're here. So yes, every student who has an accommodation must register with our department also. However, if you've already been with accommodations in London, like I mentioned, we have this transition meeting that's happening, I believe, on the 19th of November. So we should get that list from the team in London, and then our team will be reaching out. But if you are not on that list and receiving, make sure that you're on it as well. This is also something that if and when you decide to go to the Boston campus, and that's part of the trajectory for our Global Scholars kids, you will also have to do that once you go to Boston as well.
Okay, I think there was a follow-up there. Even all the documents have to be, so all documents have to be resubmitted?
Correct.
Yes.
And a lot of this, again, is because of the way that the systems work. Some of the systems that we have here in the States is very different than the systems in the UK. And so there's a little bit of more of a transition we need for the documentation.
And I think you're absolutely correct, Lillian, the translation between the countries as well, right? So it's just a way for us to be able to transition that from UK law to US law. And there likely could be some changes, right, regarding that. So that's where that conversation that Lillian mentioned is going to be really helpful. Once your information is submitted, you'll meet directly with that DAS team and they'll be able to support you appropriately. Awesome. Great question. Thank you. All right. So we're going to go ahead and close it up for today. But again, you have this information right here on the screen. So please do reach out to our colleagues in Oakland. And again, we will share this recording with everyone via email early next week. And please do look at that YouTube playlist for any of the other webinars as well. But we look forward to seeing you in Oakland in January. But with that, enjoy the rest of your few weeks in London and have a great holiday if we don't see you. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.